The chair recognizes the Honorable Rebekah Warren.
You know the old saying, the third time's the charm? Commonly meant to understand that 2 efforts at something had already failed, but a third one might be successful? Well, today marks the 3rd time that I have stood in a chamber of this legislature for the purposes of a farewell speech. I don't actually know if anyone else has ever had the opportunity to do a 3rd farewell speech. As of for now, we're a very small club. We who started in the House, went to the Senate, and bounced back to the House for what remaining years we had under term limits. But even having done this twice before, or perhaps because I've done it twice before, it's been daunting to figure out how to sum up all the things that I have to say about my years of service in the few minutes that I get to have the microphone today. At first, I thought perhaps I would just read the first 2 farewell speeches that I've given, because with term limits, it means so many of you in this room have never heard those first 2 before. But it would take far too much time, and it seemed just a little disingenuous. But fair warning, I'll be sprinkling in a little bit of history and a few words of those previous 2 as I go. So here we go. My career in Lansing, by the numbers. 27 years in Lansing. As many of you know, I got my first job in this business in 1993 when I was hired to be a legislative assistant to one of my predecessors. When given a quick staff orientation, we walked through both the House and Senate galleries and observed some of both of each in session. It was explained to me as fact. The Senate is the upper chamber. Just look around, I was told. The dignity, the decorum, the attention to rules. And the House? Look around. Nobody sits in their seats. The volume is always at least a dull roar, and it's very common to hear from Madam Speaker, "Members, please, we can't hear the representative who's addressing this legislation." And even though I've now had the opportunity to serve in both the House of Representatives and the Senate, I've always loved the atmosphere of the House best. While the Senate's inertia urges you to stay in your lane, I think of the House as the Wild Wild West, where any spunky gunslinger can challenge anyone at high noon and go toe-to-toe on any issue, any day. Where you don't always know in advance who's gonna jump in to have your back, and it never hurts to have one more thing up your sleeve. Whether it needs to be an ace or a derringer depends on the day. And in the House, you can be relevant. In the majority or the minority, if you do your homework, if you take a stand, and you make your voice heard. 14 years elected. I've served in the legislature for 14 years through 2-year terms, 3 times in the House, 2 4-year terms in the Senate. I've lived through a redistricting cycle that brought me a whole new group of constituents in my 2nd term in the Senate, and a brand new district number when I returned to the House for my final 2 years. For clarity, I won the 53rd House District in 2006 and 8. When I moved to the Senate, represented the 18th, and came back to the House, representing now the 55th. I have all those vanity plates so far saved and framed, thanks to the former Representative Steve Ehart for that idea. In the 14 years I've represented Washtenaw County, there's only one tiny corner in the southwest portion of the county that has never been in the district that I've represented. I am grateful to every single voter who filled in that circle beside my name on the ballot. The trust and faith that my constituents have had in me time and time again is the greatest honor I can imagine. 2 speakers. 14 years in the legislature, my party has been in both the majority and the minority. And if anyone in this room is wondering, let me assure you, the majority is better. But in all that time, I've only had 2 speakers. So thank you first to Speaker Andy Dillon, who, when I was in my first term, gave me the opportunity to chair the Great Lakes and Environment Committee, one of only 2 first-term women at that time in history who ever got a gavel to chair a committee. Now, I'm humble enough to admit that I had absolutely no credentials to hold that particular gavel, no degree in environmental science, no leadership in environmental or natural resource protection organizations. Speaker Dillon said that my years of service as chief of staff to 2 Democratic legislators gave him the confidence that I could lead a committee. But I have long assumed, and I would tell this story if he was sitting here beside me, that the reason I got the gavel to Great Lakes and the environment was I was a liberal woman from Ann Arbor. I must therefore hug trees, smoke pot, and wear Birkenstocks. Now, I love the flora and the fauna as much as the next person, but I've never hugged a tree. And as the honorary chair of the Stiletto Caucus, anyone who's ever checked out my shoes knows that's true, I would never wear Birkenstocks. And on that third one, well, it's all legal now, so we can just leave that one right there. In my role as chair of the Great Lakes and Environment Committee, I had the opportunity to work closely with my counterpart on the other side of the aisle and the other side of the dome, former Senator Patty Burkholz. Our ability to work together surprised people at first, but it was our bipartisan, bicameral cooperation that made it possible to pass the Great Lakes Compact, which needed not just 56 votes in the House, 20 votes in the Senate, and the signature of a governor, but then had to go to Congress and pass both chambers and be signed into law by a U.S. president. President Bush signed it into law in 2008, right before he left office. And then the Canadian government had to work the process as well. This work to protect the treasure that we jointly steward for future generations will forever be a highlight of my legislative career. Senator Burkholz and I were able to jointly champion other important bipartisan bicameral legislation. In addition to the Great Lakes Compact and its accompanying award-winning water withdrawal legislation, we passed the state's inaugural electronic waste recycling program, found funding to maintain the state oversight of the wetlands program, and created the State Parks Recreation Passport to find stable funding to take care of our most beautiful natural places, our parks, our recreation areas, and campgrounds. Our ability to work together surprised people at first, and later, after a few substantial victories, resulted in being recognized by the media and outlets as having worked together to pass some of the most significant environmental legislation in 40 years. And to my second speaker, thank you to Speaker Lee Chatfield, who in appointing me to serve as the Democratic Vice Chair of the Ways and Means Committee said he couldn't think of anyone more prepared for the role than me with my years of service and experience. So thank you, Mr. Speaker. I remain humbled by your faith and trust in me, and I thank you for that recognition and for your friendship. I had 2 Senate Majority Leaders, Randy Richardville, who I thank for appointing me to the Great Lakes Commission. Only a handful of people know he actually had to eject one of his own members, former Senator Tom Casperson, to give me that honor, and I never let him forget how appreciative I was. And Senator Arlen Meekoff, who when we served in the House for 4 years was my vice chair of the Great Lakes Environment Committee. He tells a story often in a golden rule way that when I had the gavel and he was in the minority, I always treated him with respect. I always let his members' amendments be heard, even when I had to roll him to move something to the House floor from my speaker. And when he became my Senate Majority Leader a few years later, he always treated me with that same respect. So Arlen, my birthday twin, we had so many shared birthday cakes under this dome. I thank you for that. 2 Senate Democratic leaders, former Senator, now Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Not everybody knows that the entire time that I served in the Michigan Senate, I was one of 4 women. The first 4 years, there were 2 Democratic women and 2 Republican women. When Gretchen Whitmer left me, I was the only Democratic woman standing. So for 4 years, I served as the only female member of the Democratic caucus. When Gretchen was my leader, she appointed me to be the campaign finance chair for the caucus, and she always had my back. Thank you, my friends. I love you. Senator Jim Ananich, my second Democratic leader, who I lovingly call JD for reasons that he and I both know. I always now check to see if he has his wallet before I get in the car with him, and he knows why. 36 public acts and counting. There are a couple bills that we passed yesterday, a couple on the Senate floor I'm still trying to eject. I'm hoping that number will be 40 by the time I leave this place next week. If I were to stand here and tell stories of the PAs that I'm proud of, I would tell you about the Breastfeeding Anti-Discrimination Act and what it's done to give the women in our state the legal right to feed their babies anywhere that they are allowed to be. And about the Recreation Passport and how it's protected some of the most beautiful natural places, how the expansion of our Medicaid program has now provided health insurance to over 850,000 of the most vulnerable citizens in our state. If I told you a little bit about all of them, it'd take way too long. We'd be here all afternoon, so I'm not going to do that. I'll just briefly say, I'm proud of my legislation that became public acts to address human trafficking, to support the research and development of autonomous and connected vehicle technology, turning the former Willow Run-based arsenal of democracy into the arsenal of innovation, to combat aquatic invasive species, and to ban the R word, and grant dignity in the ways that our laws address our citizens with intellectual disabilities. I'm so proud to have been part of that in Michigan. Constituent correspondence numbers. By my best estimate, my team and I have fielded more than 37,750 phone calls from constituents. We've received more than 14,375 letters and responded to more than 106,450 emails. Lots of constituent correspondence. A couple firsts. I got to serve with Michigan's first woman governor in Jennifer Granholm. And what an amazing honor to be part of the lineage of senators in the longest held Senate seat by women in Michigan's history. Following the incomparable Lana Pollack, Elma Wheeler-Smith, Liz Brader, then I, we represented the 18th District in Washtenaw County from 1982 to 2018. When Jeff Irwin broke the streak, winning the seat in 2018, we love you, Jeff, but this is why we can't have nice things. Done with the numbers, on to the names I've been called. It's been a true pleasure and privilege to have been called representative. In 2006 and 2008, the voters of the 53rd District gave me that title. In 2018, the voters of the 55th. Being called senator by the voters of the 18th from 2010 to 18, and by all y'all going forward after sine die, because protocol dictates that you always retain the highest title. So thank you to all of those who never quit calling me senator, including you, Bo LaFave. Even when you were throwing zingers my way, you always called me senator. I appreciate you at least being polite while you were doing that. I've been called Madam Chair and Ranking Member of the Great Lakes and Environment Committee, Senate Natural Resources Committee, Senate Michigan Competitiveness, Senate Regulatory Reform, and House Ways and Means. I've been called the Dean of the Legislature. In this moment, somehow I blink my eyes and it's 14 years later, and I'm currently the longest serving member of either chamber of the legislature. And beyond those honorifics, I've been called a few other names. I've never outed the people that told me the following two stories behind the following two monikers. It was one of the most interesting experiences when I was serving in the House the first time to learn that my nickname in the Republican caucus in my first term was Glinda the Good Witch. And then watching the Republican member who shared that information with me try to spin her way out of the meaning. We call you that because of the hair, of course, and because everything you say, it just sounds so nice. But really, well, if you're not a witch, you're at least a liberal from Ann Arbor. I can live with that. I also learned along the way that there were some members in the majority party in the Senate whose staff would get together on Mondays and have a chief of staff meeting, policy meetings to talk about what was coming up in the days ahead. Someone once let it slip that some of them among them created something called the Warren Rule. The Warren Rule? For a period of time, there were some people in the Republican staff in the Senate who spent time on Mondays thinking about, what is Rebekah Warren going to see in this bill? What question is she going to ask that we have to make sure that our bosses are prepared for? Because Rebekah Warren on some committees might be the scariest person sitting at the table. The Warren Rule. A feel like it has the right blend of respect and fear. I can live with that too. And then, of course, there was Big Jack Brandenburg, who coined the nickname that is now so pervasive that I don't know if many people really understand that he's the one who started it. RW. It's my initials, of course, R and W, but no one says it like him, and there's this whole segment of people in my life who now call me RW. And that came from Jack. I miss you, Jack, and I hope you and your family are doing well. So on to the thank yous. To Leader Chris Gregg for making me part of your leadership team. Your trust in me to serve as our caucus lead for Ways and Means and to work with the administration on executive orders and directives related to the COVID-19 pandemic has meant so much. I thank you. To Team Ways and Means, Chairman Iden and Vice Chair Lilly, our Wednesday afternoon agenda-setting meetings were the perfect blend of business and social time. Before COVID stopped that, we were doing it almost every week, and we were able to keep a productive and bipartisan agenda moving. And we were quite a trio. Always a trio. I think Chairman Iden and I only ever met one-on-one once, because everywhere we went, there was Lilly. Everywhere we went, there was Lilly. Just kidding, Jim. Your thoughtful insights were always appreciated. Brant, you were a fair and straightforward chair. I have appreciated working with you always. And to the other members, Eric Leutizer, Beth Griffin, Roger Hauk, Brana Colley, and Luke Meerman, who now plays the role that Jason Wentworth started, and my Democratic colleagues, Wendell Bird, Kevin Hertel, and Kyra Bolden, who joined us when our loss became Flint's gain. Thank you, Mayor Sheldon Neely. And to the Ways and Means staff, past and present, Sam Zandy, Frank Waters, Eric Griggs, Lindsay Young, Mitch Albers, and Jessica Randall, members and staff of Team Ways and Means, we did a lot of work together, and I'm truly proud of how we worked closely together on a variety of issues that are important to so many of our citizens. To my Washtenaw County delegation, past and present, Senator Brader, Rep. Angerer, Rep. Burns, Senator Wheeler-Smith, Senator Representative Irwin, Representative Zemke, Representative Lisinski, Representative Peterson, Floor Leader Rutledge, Floor Leader Robbie, Congressman John Dingell, Congresswoman Debbie Dingell. Serving with all of you on behalf of our county's residents has been an honor. You are a very fine team, and I'd go with you anywhere. To the Young Progressive Women's Caucus, Christy Pagan, I have known you since you were a teenager, still pursuing your undergrad. You worked so hard and you had such passion then. As I've watched you grow, it's never wavered. I know you'll be amazing whatever you do next. Thank you for saying in your goodbye speech that in some small way, you recognize that I reached back to pull you up. Recruiting and training and supporting women running for office has been a huge focus of my career. Since term limits is making us both leave, I have confidence that Mari Manoogian, Kyra Bolden, Sarah Anthony, Lori Stone, and Lori Pahutsky will continue the fight for our shared values. I know I speak for KP and I both when I say you can call on us for anything you need. We got you, girls, always. To John Hoadley, I didn't know you when you were a teenager, but not long after. You are the only legislator I know who stays in a better mood through all the ups and downs of this work than me. And my former colleague, Joe Hune, once told me at the 12-year mark of serving together that he'd never seen me in a bad mood. In 12 years. Your authorship of the John Hoadley Rule lives on. Leader-elect Lisinski is even now impressing it on the next class of legislators. To the elected members of my social club, some who were self-selected, who would go out to eat, have drinks, play pool or shuffleboard, past and present. Harold Haw, Terry Sabo, Kathy Angerer, Scott Dianda, John Churkin, Mike Mueller, Joe Hune, Tori Rocca, Barb Farah, Alex Garza, Kevin Coleman, Pat Green, Nate Shannon, Sarah Cambenzi. Can't wait till it's safe to hang out with you all again. And Angela Whitwer. You're an angel. I've been blessed in my life to have many close girlfriends, but you were a gift I didn't even know how much I needed. You call just to check in. You always somehow have time for me no matter what else is going on in your life. I'm so glad we're friends. To those closest to me on a day-to-day basis, my fabulous office staff. Sarah Kermey, my 10-year chief of staff, and when she was on political leave, campaign manager extraordinaire who got me here every time. She left when she got the job offer of a lifetime for a campaign enthusiast. She and her precious little angel mean the world to me. Jessica Randall stepped in and has been my right hand for the last 4 years. I am convinced there is not a single thing that Jess cannot do. She writes, she researches, she mentors the staff and interns, and she effortlessly finds answers to every single random question I throw at her. Thank you, Jess. To PJ Petiprin, my special projects director, the only one of my team who's been with me the entire 14 years, with her special gift of making complex constituent cases look easy, of finding solutions where none seemed obvious, has been a godsend. And that she somehow does it in such a way that people seem to say thank you to me in the grocery store and at coffee hours. Days, weeks, and years later, it's meant so much. Chief supplier of my Diet Coke addiction, I love you. Thank you, PJ. To Emma Heaton, my current scheduler, the most important job in the office. You making sure I am where I need to be with what I need to have, wearing what I need to be wearing every time is appreciated. Yeah, I once went to a farm tour in stilettos. That was my own doing. Emma's never let that happen to me, not even one time under her watch. Thank you, Emma, for keeping the trains running on time. It's been a pleasure to work with you. I've said it before and I'll say it again. You, my staff, hold my reputation in your hands every day. You're the first voice on the phone, you're the first face in the office, and you have never let me down. You have served the constituents of my districts with true dedication. You make me proud, and you never fail to make me smile. Thank you to my parents, Larry and Andrea, to my 3 sisters, Deborah, Rachel, and Sarah. Yes, I'm one of 4 daughters, and for you biblical scholars, you probably caught that we're named for 4 of the 5 Old Testament matriarchs. My poor dad was so outnumbered between the 4 of us and our mom, even the dog was a girl. He had tricks like making sure that at least one of us was on his side. Didn't matter if it was one of us girls or my mom, but if we were all mad at him at the same time, he was in big trouble. You fathers of daughters, it's a good lesson for you. I would not be the woman I am today without their support and love. To my Mayoral crew, Sarah, Kelly, Sarah, and Jamie, you are my heart. Your friendship means the world to me, and I love you all. To my Hers Days besties, Leslie and Beth, our 2 to 3 hour Zooms every other Thursday fill my well, make me laugh, and keep me sane. Much love always. To my Sunday brunch crew, there are no words. You are my rock, my life counsel. You teach me something new all the time, and I look forward to many more opportunities in the future. To Conan Smith, the dreamer of big dreams, who was the first person who ever asked me to seriously consider running for office, then bugged me over and over and over again until I finally did. Thank you for believing in me before I ever believed in myself. You are my best friend, my touchstone, the loudest, most consistent cheerleader I've ever had, 23 years and counting. To Donna Lisinski, my seatmate, my colleague, my friend. We merged our pods early and spent so much of this pandemic side by side. Your enthusiasm, your pragmatic problem solver soul, which leads to your ability to break down even the most complex issues, are unparalleled. I know that you will lead the caucus well into the 101st legislature. Donna, I have 3 sisters by blood, but you are the sister of my heart. In closing, I offer this unsolicited advice in hopes that it will be received in the spirit I am offering it. When it's safe to do so again, take advantage of the opportunities we get offered here. I've had the opportunity to visit the salt mines underneath the city of Detroit and to go to the top of the Mackinac Bridge and so many things in between. Visit our state institutions, our parks, each other's districts. Take the trips that offer you a chance to learn about policy, culture, economic development. You never know who you'll meet along the way. I first met Tristan Cole when we ended up on a plane together to a Great Lakes Legislative Caucus meeting. And as we waited for the hotel shuttle, which was very, very late, I learned so much more about big game hunting and whether or not you can or should bring it on an airplane than I ever thought that I would know in a very long, long wait. I've never been happier to see that shuttle pull up. Just kidding, Tristan. I learned a lot that day, and I made a new friend. I met my friends Kathy Crawford and Dare Rendon at conferences they attended with their spouses, then Reps Hugh Crawford and Rep Bruce Rendon, before they ever served a day in this body. Love you, Hugh and Bruce, but we have the better halves serving with us now. My relationships with Lee Chatfield, Jason Wentworth, Shane Hernandez, Dave Agema, Pete McGregor, Mike Shirkey, Kate Siegel, Lisa Brown, Tanya Shootmaker, Eric Nesbitt, Clint Kesto, Frank Foster, Jeremy Moss, Jim Lilly, Brant Iden, Pauline Wenzel, Mark Heisinga, and Jason Shepard all deepened when we were able to travel and represent Michigan together. And we've been able to work together on many issues as a result of that deeper trust. So make time for your colleagues. This is first and foremost a people business. There is so much that we do here that is personal to us and our constituents. The more we invest in each other, the easier it is to work together. Find a reason. Urban, rural, Democrat, Republican, men, women. Gary Howell, Brana Colley, Julie Alexander, Graham Filler, Mark Heisinga, and Dare Rendon, thank you for working with me on bipartisan bill packages this term. I've learned in this place, no matter how divided we may feel or how different we may think we are from each other, there are always things that we have in common and ways we can work together without compromising our core values. I don't just believe this to be true, I know it to be so. Because even though I had the longest running streak of being named the most liberal member in the chamber that I've served in 3 decades, that the Inside Michigan Politics has been keeping score, including in 2018, I was named most liberal member of the Michigan Senate, and I had more bills signed into law than any other Democrat. It's possible. Work together. Never take for granted the majesty of this place. Slow down. Look up. Find Michigan in the glass ceiling above us. Appreciate the beauty of this place every day. Make good trouble. Fight for justice. Remember that social change is a marathon, it's not a sprint, and every mile that you put in the rear view today is a mile you don't have to run later. What I've loved about this job above all else, and the reason I ultimately made the decision to stay for a couple more years, is after all this time, I get to go home every single night and feel good about the things I did, knowing I worked hard to make someone's life better and improve the future of our state. Sometimes those things are big, like passing the Great Lakes Compact, a policy that will likely stand for a generation. Sometimes they're small and personal, like cutting red tape or helping constituents access safety net services when they're needed. Sometimes they're constituent service requests, sometimes they're policy changes, but whatever they are, they matter. And I'm grateful that I've had so much opportunity to help. So 3rd time's the charm. This is really farewell. Thank you all for letting me be part of this body.